Weddings are highly emotive, emotional events. But it's a big money business. It really is.
When we start talking about the wedding industry and so on, what do you see that's changed?
People always expect instant butterflies, fireworks. Sometimes the slow burn and becoming friends is actually the one that lasts the longest.
It must be really challenging for the new generation to get married.
Because it's so fast paced and there's a lot of dating apps that are being used and swiping. So there's all these kind of young men and women feeling that they have to be a certain way in order to attract a certain person.
What was the secret to a marriage success?
I think it's...
I didn't do that. Welcome back to Gladiator TV. And as you probably guessed, I'm not Dariush Soudi. Dave Crane. Dariush is traveling and saving the world just in time to team up with Superman. But we have an amazing show for you today because I'm joined by the amazing Rio. Now, the amazing Rio makes it sound like somebody who works in a circus, but in fact what she does, if you want to look at weddings as circuses, then you're quite close to it. But the amazing Rio is normally called Rhiannon Downie Hurst, which is a huge mouthful. And Rio, I can imagine how many times your name is spelt wrong when it gets put down on any paperwork or anything here. So yeah. Rio makes sense.
I've been called Rhino, Rahina, Ribena. Yeah, you name it. I've been called it.
We'll stick with Rio for now.
Yeah.
I've known you, 15 years at least.
We go way back, Dave. Way back.
I remember when you first worked with me, you hired me. You were running a magazine at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a green event. And I was emceeing. And the whole venue was with green lights. It's all about sustainability. Way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Because now that's really important for every other organisation to consider.
Yeah.
But it was a really great event. What I loved about it was you knew exactly what you were doing. And we've stayed friends all the way through, but you've had so many adventures and so many really cool things.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Who's Rio?
Who's Rio? Rio is a mummy, a wife, a multi-entrepreneur, and a humanitarian who cares about people. Loves community, little bit of a conspiracy theorist. I could go on.
All right, let's just rewind. Conspiracy theorist. Is that going to be getting us into trouble, or is
yeah,
it?
but let's not go. Let's keep that for another podcast.
Okay, that's a
in a different
conversation
country.
we will have separately. Then that's always fascinating. But
yeah.
I know you as somebody who's been in the entertainment and media industry for a very long time in Dubai.
Yeah.
Somebody who is one of the pioneers of the way it is now, but also that would have meant a massive shift in the way that you saw things moving. Let's take it from when you're running magazines and newspapers. The shift to see a paperless media and all online, we're still kind of dealing with the difference between old media thinking and new media thinking.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, back in the day when I was working for some of the bigger publishers in the region, I don't know whether it's an Aquarian trait, but like we're quite visionary. We can see into the future. And a lot of people were really pushing back on moving things online or embracing social media at that time. Whereas me and a few others who are still actually about in Dubai today, we were very much, we need to look into this. People are very much hopping online now. Everything is going to be digitalized in the future. So when I launched my first platform, which is Bride Club ME, initially I was told to run it print only.
Right.
And the reason...
It was a magazine at first, wasn't it? That's how it was getting itself out to people.
Yeah, like I feel like... So just to kind of backtrack a little bit, how I got into the whole wedding industry and things like that is previous to moving to Dubai, I was in the entertainment performing arts industry, professional singer, did a bit of acting and stuff like that. And actually I was going to launch a platform for the performing arts industry. I was at the time working for Be Green magazine, which was printed on environmentally friendly paper, recycled paper. It was a magazine focused on sustainability, everything green. We spoke about all those kind of issues and topics. And this was like, this was 15 years ago.
15 years
About
ago.
15 years ago. And we launched an online platform, we had the social media, we had events around the magazine. But I always had like this entrepreneurial spirit. And my CEO at the time, my manager, Dominic D'Souza, who many people might know and remember, God bless him. He's passed away now.
An eccentric character, bar none, I think. He used to keep wild animals and look after them, all sorts of stuff. And
he was off his trolley.
Whenever he had a conference or a staff event, he'd play in his band as entertainment for the event. It was just off the charts.
And I'd be the backing singer.
Oh, there you go.
I mean, every Friday he'd shut down the office at like 3:00 and get us all to jam in his office.
Amazing.
I loved him. But what he was really good for is something called intrapreneurship.
Right.
So there's entrepreneurship, but intrapreneurship is where you can kind of run your own thing within the comfort and safety net of an existing company. So like you might have shares in a particular magazine, or it will be like a 40-60 type of split. So he was very encouraging of that, and he could kind of spot the people in the company that had that entrepreneurship streak, but were a little bit scared to kind of...
So at a safety net of a company protecting you, like a JV, but it's done as a partnership internally.
Exactly. So
Sponsored.
so he could see, he kept on encouraging me, you've got to do your own thing. We've got to launch something together. So I was going to launch a platform for the performing arts industry. And then I fell in love and became engaged.
There you
and
go.
Started
Lovely Adam.
Yeah, lovely Adam, Wi-Fi guy. And I started to do research for the wedding, and I just felt myself becoming increasingly like overwhelmed with all of the kind of, there's so many venues here, but also I couldn't find certain styles of bridal gown that I was looking for, and like really modern kind of items for my wedding and stuff. But I managed to find them, but it took me a really long time. And so I went into his office one day and I was like, what do you think about a wedding magazine? And he was like, yes, let's do it. We'll do a print magazine. We'll also launch divorce as well, because after you get married, you get divorced. I was like, hold your horses
not
boy.
Wedding and honeymoon, wedding and divorce.
Wedding and divorce.
Perfect.
He was like, let's do Divorce Club, Emmy.
It's probably right.
And I was like, no, I don't want it to be print. It has to be digital, because I am not reading any bridal magazines at the moment. I'm using online platforms globally.
Absolutely.
And I'm like, but I'm making rookie mistakes. So I'm kind of taking American traditions and telling my British bridesmaids certain things so it's all confusing to me. I've never been married before. So I kind of put a little bit of market research out there, set some meetings up with vendors and wedding planners, and they were all so excited because there was no platform for them to properly market themselves. Whereas it existed for like beauty or babies or like, mum lifestyle type things, but there was nothing for the wedding industry.
The wedding was very much like an adventure that you would kind of like lift the lid off, and there's no set way of doing it in those days. A bit like when you're having a kid, having a baby. It's like, good luck.
How do you know? Like, how do you know where to start?
Is it coming out?
Yeah. We don't get given like a guidebook.
No, very interesting.
So I was insistent that it was online. So I think it was one of their first completely online media publications that they took a risk on. Yeah. And then a year later, we had a meeting, we sat down and we agreed that I would set up my own media company. So that's when Club Media was launched. And I really was like a baby in the big entrepreneurship world, building my business by myself.
Amazing.
And we left on good terms.
Was there any pullback or pushback on that idea of you taking something that you created internally and launching it externally without, do they own shares in it, or did they say good luck and off you go?
Well, Dom was known for, like if you cross him, he had a sting in his tail.
Yeah.
Right? And there were situations in the past with people who he launched publications with where it got a little bit ugly. Whereas with me, he was like, I'm letting you spread your wings. You take everything, you fly, baby. Like,
that's amazing.
I know. And I was like, I was quite shocked, to be honest, because I was expecting some kind of pushback. But I think he could see that it was a platform that really needed its own thing.
It's
It
an
was,
ecosystem, and it needed to breathe, and it didn't need
Yeah.
somebody looking over it and telling you what to do.
And at the
because-
time, it wasn't going to be pulling in like the millions and millions and millions of dollars that they wanted and needed, to be fair. So, so I went off on my own 2 feet, and it was very scary. And, I had to kind of learn a lot of things by myself, because with him, I had, the invoicing team, I had the IT team at hand,
And then it just becomes you.
Then it was just like me, like, oh my goodness, but it was also really exciting as well. Like, there's a level of freedom that comes with that.
So now you're taking on, at that point, you're taking on the idea of creating something for the wedding industry. I, at one point, was involved in the wedding industry as, what's it called when you marry people?
Celebrant.
I was a celebrant.
Yeah.
And I found that I did probably about half a dozen marriages when people get married again, and we just need the vows in a registry office, or they want to do it in a restaurant. But it was insufferable to deal with people and their moods and their mood swings and the arguments about the words that we're going to use, and then the falling out. She's not coming in today. You have to work with me. And then you get thrown at the parents.
Yeah.
And I just went, whoa. This is too much of
Yeah.
a headache for what it's worth.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with that element? Because it is a real part of the energy of a wedding.
Well, look, weddings are highly emotional events,
For a good reason.
And hopefully it only happens one time in a person's life, but you never know. So there is a lot of pressure, external, internal. And honestly, I'm not a wedding planner, so I don't have to deal with the that type of conflict. But because I'm in the middle as like a concierge media platform and community for the wedding industry, I hear it from all sides. So I hear the bride's perspective, I hear the wedding planner's perspective, and they're very emotive events, and I honestly recommend, and this isn't just like a sales pitch or me promoting the industry or the hire of a wedding planner. I really do think wedding planners are like vital components of a wedding. Because wedding planners are so much more than just, making everything look pretty. Mm-hmm. They also have to deal with a lot of emotions.
Yeah, politics.
They have to deal with tears. They've got to deal with like 2 different sets of parents wanting to, stick their oar in. And wedding planners are like free mediators and therapists as well.
They have to be, but I found that at every stage you have to have that kind of role to be able to do it. And so, can you share with me, if you know the stats of what happens with people getting married? How many stay married nowadays? Because it feels to me like less people are dating, less people are getting together, but there's still a burgeoning marriage industry, wedding industry.
I think statistically it varies from country to country. Okay. There's various nuances that play a role in that. That could be culture, right? Religion, the economic stability of the country. There's so many different factors that play a part in, whether couples are staying
arranged
together.
marriages are still going strong, but individuals, whoever choose who it is that they want to marry, are maybe not as often as they used to be. Is that what you're saying? I
mean, I've heard that divorce rates are higher than ever. Mm-hmm. There could be varying factors that play a part in that. I mean,
they don't get on with each other?
Probably. I'm not an expert in that, but, I do see a lot of podcasts and relationship podcasts where they touch on these subjects. And, like I said, there's so many different factors that play a part. It depends on what country you're talking about. But I just think these days people are taking marriage a lot more seriously in terms of when they get married and who they get married to. So they're delaying, right? By which point sometimes it might be quite difficult to find a partner. And then also I think, in terms of like where people are culturally, the arranged marriage, it depends on which forced and arranged is different, right? So in arranged marriage, you get married based on compatibility, education, star sign, horoscopes, even with certain people.
Okay.
Age, religion, right? So there's this grounding before the marriage has even started.
There's a marriage of parents, effectively, and families before there's a marriage of the two people.
Yeah, and I know people that have very successful, healthy arranged marriages.
Yeah.
And then I also know people that are in miserable arranged marriages.
Yeah.
You know, every circumstance is different. Like, I can't sort of, provide statistics. I just think every circumstance is different. And I think in today's society with dating, because it's so fast paced and there's a lot of dating apps that are being used, we're living in this society where it's very, what's next? I can do better. Oh no, that person looks nicer. Oh, that person's too short. Oh, it's a very, we've lost that connection.
There's more choice available maybe than before, but the choice isn't necessarily that you know the person well or they're recommended well.
Yeah.
It's more like marrying somebody you've seen on Instagram or Facebook. And it's not even marriage, it's probably selecting to start that relationship going. From the point of view of where you are with your overview of the wedding industry, first of all, Dubai must be a really good place to be for that, because most people want to come to the sunshine and the glam and so on. But it must be really challenging for I say that, I've been married 20 years, for the new generation to get married, because there's so many more visible choices and so many more things that you'd have to clarify of everybody else. And in the day, back in the day when I did it, you just needed parents to be happy and your friends would turn up. And that was pretty much how it went.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think, no disrespect to podcasts, because I know I'm on a podcast, but I think with the rise of, certain types of podcasts being run by certain men and certain women,
right,
there seems to be this battle of the sexes. Right.
So it's talking about toxic masculinity.
Not necessarily toxic. I don't think masculinity is toxic, to be honest. I just think there's this narrative being pushed to the younger generation. So there's women out there telling, younger women, he must be earning X million amount of dollars by the age of this age. And then there's men, talking about, you must be this type of man in order to get a woman, right? So there's all these kind of young men and women feeling that they have to be a certain way in order to attract a certain person. And then they're using the apps as well and swiping, that I just feel there's a lot of pressure on both sides to be established and this and that before you actually enter into a meaningful relationship.
Capitalism in relationships. So you must have bigger and better iPhone than the other person, but actually looking at what the actual characteristics of the person are. Yeah. And that's being driven, as you say, by the podcast. But I think that, I agree with you completely. I don't know how naive we were back in the day, because I've mentioned this on the podcast before.
Yeah.
In my day, 8,000 years ago, when you met somebody, you usually met them when you'd been drinking too much. In my day, it wasn't even about, arranged. You met them, if you still liked him, you'd see him again. If you carried on liking him, you had it as a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Yeah. If that continued, people would stare at you and say, what's going to happen next? You go, I don't know. It's been 2 years.
Or it was through friends, it was through family, it was through a house party, it was through a hobby. You go to a theatre class, you're doing, tango,
I didn't
things
do that.
like that. These days I feel like we're more connected than ever, but less connected than ever, if that makes sense.
I do think so. And I think what maybe we're talking about as well is people are more driving to the end result rather than the relationship.
Yeah.
So it's really like, is this going to end in a long marriage? If not, then that's not the one I want, as opposed to the actual bonding of somebody.
Yeah.
And back in the day, you'd sometimes get attracted to somebody who's a complete polar opposite, but you get on really well.
Yeah,
and if you continue to do that,
You
know, if you continue that relationship, then you can hang out and it becomes your best friend, your relationship, the love of your life, and why not make it legit and have babies? It just seems to be more pressure.
The slow burn, guys. The slow burn. People always expect instant butterflies, fireworks. That's not necessarily always the best recipe for a long-term relationship. Sometimes the slow burn and becoming friends is actually the one that lasts the longest. Sometimes
interesting to see. With that, when we start talking about relationships and talk about the wedding industry and so on, what do you see that's changed? Because I think that when you look at a place like Dubai, getting married is usually, we'll have an engagement party and then we'll have like the actual wedding and then a reception, happy days done, and a honeymoon maybe. But it seems to have built up into lots of pre-events, especially when you look at different nationalities with separate weddings, where they have different. There's a lot going on, and how can people afford to have that? Because it's an expensive process, especially when you invest in your wedding. You're usually paying it off for a little while before it's all done.
Yeah, I mean, look, weddings have evolved massively. I've actually got an article on Bride Club and Me where I interviewed my 93-year-old grandma about her wedding.
Oh, wow. Well, she just got married again?
No, back in the day.
All right.
In the 40s. About her wedding and how she planned it and what were the most important things. And back in the day, for them, it was all about the dress and the honeymoon, right? And they would always have local honeymoons because they couldn't afford and they couldn't really travel far distance. So it was all about the look, and they modelled it off the Hollywood starlets, right? These days, again, with the rise of social media and media platforms like mine, hold my hands up, constantly putting imagery out there of what's trending, what's pretty, look at this person's wedding. It does put a certain amount of pressure on brides, on couples. And again, it's very culturally nuanced. So with an Indian wedding, for example, they often have 3-day weddings. It's a 3-day affair, and they invite a lot of people. Whereas if you have very typical kind of British wedding, European wedding, it's a lot smaller. It's maybe 1 or 2 events. But especially in a country like the UAE and Dubai, especially for expats who fall in love here and get married, you're looking at guests that are coming in from all over the world, right? Often different cultures, different nationalities, different religions. So having multi-day events is quite common because you're trying to please everyone. You're also trying to include various elements of different cultures. And weddings are very much more global these days as well, with the ability to be able to travel and options. So weddings have evolved into multi-day affairs. There's a whole ecosystem involved. It's a big money business. It really is.
There's 2 ways this whole conversation can go before we go on to the next topic, which is, should it be driven by money or should it be driven by relationship?
Relationship, always.
So what did your granny say? 93, 94 years old, looking back, what was the secret to a marriage success?
I'm not necessarily going to say that her marriage was a success. She was married to a not very nice person, but and she did end up getting divorced.
Right. So it's a bad example then.
Yeah,
but from your experiences.
Bad example. Yeah. What's the secret to a successful marriage?
When you meet people, you must have people come back to you years later, or maybe they just disappear into the ether.
Yeah.
But when they do come back, what did work?
I think it's when it's really, it is very heartfelt. And for example, so I have a few businesses in the wedding industry. So one of them is a marriage proposal planning company. So
sorry, rewind that back again. Marriage proposal planning company.
Yes.
So
the big proposals.
It's got to be something like when somebody says it's going to be pink or blue and reveal the baby. There's another version which is before you get married. There's a proposal.
So say you want to propose to your lady.
Right.
And you want to do something a little bit special, you can enlist the services of a proposal planner. So the proposal planner will do everything, and you just need to rock up and ask her to marry you. So that's what proposal planning is.
What do you mean do everything? Surely you just drop down on one knee in the middle of a cafeteria and say,
Dave,
come on.
Don't be so naive.
Really?
In today's society?
Yeah, why not?
No, listen, we've planned proposals that have just been very intimate affairs in somene's home.
Right.
Flowers and candles.
How do you need to plan that? Turn the telly off.
No, honestly, guys, a lot of guys need help. Some guys are brilliant and they don't need to do anything. My cousin, for example, proposed to his girlfriend in Cyprus. He called me because he knows that I'm a proposal planner, and he just run his idea by me. And I said, right, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? And he's like, Oh, I never thought about that. Thank
Like
you.
what? Like what?
But he planned the whole thing himself, right?
Okay.
So his idea was they go to their favourite beach in Cyprus when the sun is going down.
Ah.
Throughout the whole holiday, he was setting up the camera to take footage of like their holiday, just so it wasn't obvious on the day. So he made it a thing that he was setting up the stand with the camera every time they went out, right? So he obviously did that on the day of the proposal, got her to set up the camera.
Wow.
And while she was setting up the camera, he went and put a message in a bottle on the Pebble Beach, right? Now, what I said to him is make sure she can get the message out. So have a string there, right? So these are what planners think of. And I was like, how do you know someone's not going to steal the bottle? Like, and he was like, no, don't worry, I've got all that planned out, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so he puts the bottle down. They go and take a photo, the sunset. They see this bottle. She's like, oh my goodness, what's that? Pulls it out. He's written a beautiful message. He gets down on one knee and he's pre-purchased this beautiful shell with a pearl that he's put the ring in. Simple, magical, right?
Yeah.
Don't need a planner for that. It's heartfelt.
It's beautiful.
Right? And honestly, the proposals that I see like that and the ones that we do that are more low-key, really, like the guys thought about what's her favourite song, what colour does she love, like things like that. You can see that relationship will stand the test of time. It's the ones where it's like really over the top and it's really about him and what he wants and less
and
about
it's about
her.
the people watching as opposed to, I mean, I've seen a number of sponsored weddings where they get like a chocolate sponsor. And so they have posing. Do you remember there was one in the UK that I won't mention who it was, but that seems to me so artificial. Why don't you just actually make it about love? That would be an easy way of doing it, maybe. I remember when I married Aziza before, we went to the West Indies, to Nevis, where my mum and dad were living, and we were house sitting for them. And I managed to smuggle a ring, which I'd wrapped up with "to Mum" on it, so she didn't open every package I had in the cases.
Yeah.
Took her to a restaurant, beautiful restaurant looking out onto the bay, and I had to leave the ring on the floor as I was driving, but they wouldn't let me park the car in the car park because it was full. I had to go a mile away to park it somewhere else, so I couldn't carry the ring because she was watching me as I got out the car. So I had to go to the bathroom, leaving her at the dinner table, ran for about a mile to get it. It was raining, came back exhausted with it in my hands, went down on one knee, and as I was doing it, there was lightning across the bay in the beautiful island next door, St. Kitts. Went down on one knee, I said, will you marry me? And she said yes. And the waitress, I was so excited, the waitress looked at me. I said, I've just asked this beautiful lady to marry me. And she said yes. She went, okay, that's nice. Picked up the plates. Because where we were, everyone must have done it so many times.
Yeah,
so she didn't
so
care.
used to it. Yeah.
There's nothing at all. It was like deflating it. But yeah, now I think about it, I did plan it better than that. So
yeah.
That's not bad.
Well, see, men are more than capable of doing it, right? I think some of them just don't trust their ability. However, that said, there have been many proposals that we've planned that if we weren't there, it would have been a disaster, right? So one example, Burj Khalifa, C'est la vie, set up, beautiful, Burj Khalifa in the background. We did a whole image gallery, like an art gallery of their relationship from start to finish, leading up the walkway to the Burj, right? Massive storm hit. Photos started flying around, candles were falling over, right? Us planners had systems in place.
Right.
We had a plan B, right? If we weren't there, he would have rocked up, smashed glass, things like that. So planners do add value, but it's not for everyone. Not every man needs one. You're more than capable of doing it yourself. But if you do want something, a little bit extra special, if she's a bit bougie or whatever, that's where planners, help.
And sometimes you only find out once you're married or exactly what the other person's like. That's another adventure. Have you ever seen a wedding that you planned and they've fallen out on the day and had to cancel it, so all that money went down the toilet?
Yeah, so I don't plan weddings, Dave.
You don't.
I'm not a wedding planner. But have I heard of it? Yes. And also we've featured weddings on Bride Club where we've been asked to remove the content because they've subsequently got divorced.
How quickly?
Usually a few years.
Okay.
Yeah, usually a few years. And obviously we completely respect that, we have disclaimers when we feature weddings, and if a couple really want it taken down, we respect that. But yeah, of course I've heard from planners about things like that. There's been a few no-shows, cold feet, It's just
No shows. I
yeah,
can't imagine.
Heartbreaking, really, but it happens.
The stress that goes into planning an event. I've been in the events industry for 8 billion years now.
Yeah.
First on stage when I was about 3 years old, which was about 8 billion years ago. But we worked together before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
My wife was a wedding photographer, or award-winning wedding photographer.
We used to work with her.
Of course. Yeah. I used to host global events and teach people to speak. Then it went dead. Nothing for 2 years.
Yeah.
How did you manage to sustain? Because were people still getting married in public or online? How did you manage to keep it going?
Yeah, I think we've all got a bit of PTSD from that period.
Massively. But not everybody has. People who are in the people industry have.
Yeah. I mean, my husband's business went crazy during COVID. It was really good for him. My business came to a standstill. But what I didn't do is stop. I continued to put out content, even though my income reduced by 98%.
Hey.
Right? So I was earning 2% of my average income. And I still continued to put content out there, service the industry, because I knew and I was certain that the industry would come back, and it would come back with a bang, right? I knew that people would be hungry for experiences, for connection, for community. And if I continued to support the industry and guide them through this period, it would come back to me, right? I'm not saying I did it for selfish reasons. I did it for my own sanity as well, and because I wanted to give back to the community, but I knew it would come back to me and that people would not forget that. So what I did was, I did a lot of B2B content for the wedding industry. So a lot of lives on Instagram. How can we get through this period? I did consultations on how to pivot your business during COVID for wedding entrepreneurs.
What was that then? How could you pivot your business?
So, for example, bridal boutiques were really struggling. So they started to launch, I encouraged them to launch bridal mask ranges, right?
Oh, interesting.
Wedding planners to do virtual wedding consultations.
Right.
And virtual weddings did happen. There's a company called The Big Night here who really, really pushed forward during that period. And did a lot of virtual events.
So everyone's on Zoom,
yeah,
apart from the happy couple,
but
and
they
the
still
priest.
kind of created this magic around it. They still made it a magical experience as much as it could be when you're not in the same room together. Yeah. Yes, there were companies still having and hosting weddings, which was actually not supposed to be happening.
Of course.
And I didn't really want to entertain that because I thought the more people were doing that.
But people did get prosecuted for that as well.
Yeah, and I got very frustrated by it because I was like, you're holding us back. So every time they were found out, they'd close the wedding industry down again. So I don't really think that was very helpful. A lot of people postponed their weddings. So they just waited, and they really assessed what meant something to them, and a lot of people decided, I don't want to have this big hoo-ha wedding. I just want to marry the person that I love. So as soon as things were open again, they just went and had an elopement, and they were super happy. And then maybe a year or two later, they decided to have a big anniversary bash, So I've seen a lot of that, a lot of kind of post-pandemic celebrations. But yeah, I did a wedding industry iftar with Dish Catering. They sponsored it, and Dish Catering sent food to all these entrepreneurs, wedding vendors around the UAE. We got together on Zoom. We opened our iftar together.
That's beautiful.
And we all just checked in with, how you doing.
Yeah. It's very important to be able to do that.
Community is so important, and that's why I launched Bride Club and Me Business. It's a community for the wedding industry, because that period really showed me how much we needed each other.
Definitely.
As well, which leads into, obviously mental health in the events industry is... it's tough, but it's important.
Just as a sideline before we get into that huge subject, I know there's a lot of people who ended up being locked in with a partner and finding out that they didn't actually like them after a period of time. So the wedding was off, and other people who got locked in and with a neighbour almost,
And they fell in love?
And got married afterwards. So it was a real. I mean, most people don't get the opportunity to really know what the other person's like beforehand. So I guess in some ways it swings and roundabouts.
It was a test. It was a testing time. Yeah.
It brought us closer together. We went from zero to being able to make it work because we came together to make it work, which is very important.
Exactly.
But mental health is a huge issue. I know you're a big advocate for it. When we look at the stats, and I heard you say this on stage at a Middle East event show, 1 in 4 people in normal industries suffer from mental health issues. But in the events and entertainment industry, it's 1 in 3. Why is that?
I think the events industry is unique in the sense that, especially in this region, it's a 24-hour service business, right? Especially here. And again, you're dealing with a lot of emotion. It depends on the event, of course, but there's a lot of pressure. And we're always on. We're always switched on. And you're only as good as your last event. If you produce a bad event, that will affect your business, you know? So people are always on 24/7. You're dealing with, especially in the wedding industry, you're dealing with various types of emotions. It's a 24 service industry. A lot of money goes into these big events. So there's a lot of pressure.
And because they're live, you can't rewind it and do it again. It has to happen at the time, in place. That's what you get.
Exactly. So it didn't actually surprise me when I found out about that stat, you know, and it could be burnout, for example, is very common in our industry. And what happens is a lot of people, you know, because also there's a limited time frame in which the events can happen here specifically, because summer really slows down. So you have to make as much income as possible during this period of time. And I think a lot of people, with my consultancy hat on, they don't plan ahead. So they don't plan ahead for that quiet period and have strategies in place to ensure that they can, flow through that period. So it's all go, 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 and they'll just take on whatever they can, and then they become burnt out, you know? I mean, I know a lot of planners that say that after they've executed an event, they need 3 or 4 days just completely to
but as an MC, that's almost true as well. When you've been hosting a big event, you are nil by mouth until you've recharged your batteries. You don't want to talk to anybody, and your family needs to know that you're not ignoring them. You've just used up all your words and your energy like a battery. Exactly. And so that's kind of important.
So boundaries are really important. Making time for yourself. Like, I schedule time in my diary to ensure that is time just for me, whether that is literally just laying down and closing my eyes, or going for a massage, or, recharging with some friends for a few hours. I have to schedule that time in, because in the events industry, you're always on the go, you're always busy, right? So that is, and I don't compromise on that either. And also, people in the industry know that when I'm with my son, I am with my son. I won't take your call when I'm with my son. That's mummy-son time, right? And they respect that. But they know that.
But you have to train them to know that.
Yeah, you have to train them. You have to make it clear where your boundaries are. Yeah. And I noticed this when I was in England and I was planning my mum's 70th birthday. Oh my God, they have really, really strict boundaries there compared to here.
Right.
So birthday cake deliveries, for example, I'm so used to everything happening so fast here, and people saying, yeah, we can do it at this time, and yeah, we can deliver it here or whatever. England, no, these are our times, these are our days, that's it.
Wow.
And I'm like, but I need it on Sunday. Well, then you're going to have it delivered to your house the evening before and take it with you to the venue. So they're very clear with what they will and will not accept over there.
Is that good or bad,
here, I think
though?
People are yes people here, very much so.
Because I feel that when I go back to the UK, it's really restricted about what you can actually do, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Shops are closing at 5 o'clock, so at 4:30 you walk in a shop and we're looking at you and saying, well, why are you still here?
Yeah.
Whereas here, you can go out at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock and still get stuff you need from one of the many malls that's around.
Yeah.
And I do agree the boundaries, especially when you're training people and you're a small business, are very important.
Yeah.
But I also think that in an industry where it is very cutthroat and everyone's trying to get that little one-upmanship on people, whether it's a financial thing or providing more services, it's very dangerous to lock it in unless you have got a premium product that people are willing to wait for. Because if they do have to wait, they go to somewhere else. It's like in publishing. You know, if you miss one deadline for getting out your magazine or newspaper and they pick another thing off the shelf, there's a very good chance it might not go back to yours the next month.
No, I totally agree, which is why I say, you know, especially when I'm kind of speaking to new wedding entrepreneurs or people in the events industry, you know, I do make it clear, you know, are you aware of the industry that you're getting yourself into? Because if you're looking for, you know, 9 to 5, go home, have your whole weekend to yourself, all your summer holidays, maybe this isn't the industry for you, right? People need to be aware when they get into certain industries what's expected of them, especially in this region. So with events, it is, like I said, it's very fast paced. People expect you to be on. If you're not on WhatsApp, you can lose sales. Consumers here want you to be on WhatsApp. They don't want to send their brief on email. Yeah. It's just the way it is. Whereas I've had conversations with people launching into this market, or even event sales managers of hotels who refuse to be on WhatsApp. And I'm like, well, you're missing out on business. But at the same time, there's a balance, isn't there, Dave? You know, like if you know that you're burning out, and it's affecting your physical and mental health and your family life, something has to change. Something's got to give.
Well, I came to the conclusion on exactly that point during COVID. People were cancelling left, right, and centre. Oh, we got something. Oh no, the boss is ill, not going to do it, and all this kind of stuff. And I went for 2 years, or at least 1.5 years, of almost zero events. A couple online, almost zero events. And what I realised is you can actually survive without any of these people. You can actually get through. It's not necessarily comfortable or easy, but you can do. So what I think that allowed me to do is turn around and be prepared to say no to anybody who's going to affect my mental health and my well-being, because they're pushing and shoving and saying that comparison game to what other people are doing. You know what? If you're a bad client, take it to someone else. I'll survive fine.
Yeah.
And sometimes, okay, you miss out on that initial surge of cash, but your well-being keeps you with a longevity of staying in the industry.
And if you don't have that, you're not going to have the ability to make money for your family. So this is what I say, like there's a balance, right? And, you know, I used to be very much a people pleaser back in the day. Like I would just say yes to everything. And, you know, I remember one particular client of mine, and whenever I would see a message or see the phone ring, it would fill me with anxiety. Like I'd literally be like this, you know, and I could feel my nervous system being overwhelmed, and it was affecting all of my other business transactions, and it was affecting my family life. And it wasn't until my husband sat down and said, you really don't need this client, Rio, like sack them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but they're my biggest client. And I'm like, he's like, it doesn't matter. Go and find another 2 who won't treat you that way.
Yep.
You know, so yes. I mean, I don't know if I believe the customer's always right, actually.
I don't think the customer is always right. And I think that's why they bring you in, because you know what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So the customer is handing it over to you. The customer should be respected, but if they're not going to play that game, fair enough.
Yeah, exactly. And there's, you know, there's ways of, I call it the slap and stroke approach. You slap and you stroke. You know, you've got to be firm but nice, firm but professional. You know, you don't have to be an arse about it. And, you know, don't throw your toys out of the pram and just block them and whatever. Firm but fair. And usually I think when you set boundaries and you put your foot down, people actually respect that. They know where they stand with you, you know, so they won't continue to, whereas if you allow yourself, and this works in relationships, friendships, business, if you allow yourself to be treated a certain way, people will just think they can continue to do it.
You train them or they train you. Same with any live audience, or same with any relationship.
Exactly.
As long as you're thinking what's in it for them when you do the stuff you do, and you make sure you leave them better off than they were when you first met them, after you leave them, then you're doing the right thing by that.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about that, I mean, so many areas of events are fascinating. The new generation are coming in. They're a lot more savvy about AI, a lot more savvy about social media. They come in with a different span. We've already talked about the fact that our warning signs are slow down and be careful what you're getting into, because it's not as glamorous as you think it is when you're doing it.
It looks glamorous, but the behind the scenes is very different.
We have no idea how much goes on,
Yeah.
especially in TV and radio and magazines and newspapers like that. But when it comes to AI, let's look at the wedding industry. Has that changed the amount of jobs that are available? Has it made it easier to do the job? Because AI will cover a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I am really immersing myself into trying to understand AI at the moment and technology, new tech. Because again, you know, visionary, forward thinking, it's not going anywhere, right? It's here to stay. AI has been around for decades, but a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
I think with the advancement of ChatGPT and that coming up to the forefront, now everybody's like talking about AI, but it's been here for a while. And where AI can really help business is in like automation, processes, systems. It's not here to replace, especially in the wedding industry. It will never replace a wedding planner. You know, it cannot create feelings and emotions.
Or even
in
understand them at this point.
Yeah. It will never replace a wedding planner, but it will help a wedding planner in their process, right? So a lot of wedding planners are using an AI system called Midjourney, which can help with visualizing concepts that they have in their
videos,
head.
everything now.
Yeah, exactly. So like sometimes it's difficult to actually put what is in your head onto a visual paper, right? Whereas if you can give the right prompts to Midjourney, your vision can become a reality, but then the planner will know what is logistically feasible to execute. Because Midjourney could be coming up with this amazing concept that looks pretty, but logistically won't
Impossible,
work.
yeah.
You know, like there was this private jet that went viral on Instagram with a private jet wedding, basically. Long table, flowers everywhere, food everywhere. Went viral. People thought it was real.
Yeah.
But I was pointing out to them, look at the picture. Where are people going to walk? How are they going to sit? Where are the waiters going to serve the food?
There would be food everywhere.
It's not feasibly possible. You know, yes, you could take elements of that and apply it to a private jet wedding. But that actual image is not logistically feasible, right? And then just things like, I mean, it's helping me massively with my business, you know, in terms of presentations. I've automated a lot. It's helped me with a weekly newsletter that I'm putting out there. It's saving up so much of my time so I can actually focus on the things I really want to focus on, which is building the community and really developing relationships with people. I don't want to be sat there like for hours working on presentations and
checking
things like that.
spellings and all that
Spelling
other
and things
stuff.
like that. So it's amazing for that. But it will never be, you can never rely on AI to plan and execute an entire wedding.
Here's a weird one. So we have both been in Dubai for the events industry and so on. From the weddings point of view, people are getting closer and closer to their AI.
Okay.
It's a weird conversation we're just about to start. So people are falling in love with their AIs. There are many apps that create a girlfriend or boyfriend or a relationship with the AI. I have a great relationship with mine. I'll ask it questions on the way back from work.
Yeah.
And I'll get answers back and I'll brainstorm. Fantastic.
Yeah.
But more people are lonely. More people are using like Tinder or whatever app it is to meet somebody. And many people are just opting out. I don't want to meet anybody. I'll just app. And
I think that's really sad.
it is sad, but from a weddings point of view, and somebody who's got an overview of relationships and how they develop, can you see that red flags going up about that?
It's the first time I've heard someone falling in love with their AI. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't heard of that before. Is this a real thing?
It's a real
where
thing.
did you hear this?
It's a real thing. One guy, in fact, I think he killed himself because his AI said he should divorce his wife or something. There's a lot of stories out there about it. Think about the lonely guys who just they can't approach girls, they don't know how to do it anymore. There's no bars, incels and so on. But having a phone that talks to you with an animated girlfriend, there's a lot of people, and you wouldn't know it was going on, but it is going on. And it is, at the moment, a small business, but it could become a bigger one.
Yeah, I think it's worrisome. And I think that I do think there's a little bit of a sort of epidemic of loneliness in general. Like I said before, I think we're more connected than ever digitally, but less connected than ever, which again is why community is a really big thing for me in my business. You know, I'm not a therapist, psychiatrist, I'm not a relationship expert, but I do value community, which is why I try to set up community in every facet of my business, whether it's B2B or community for the brides or something, because I feel we need more human connection than ever. But I think it's so easily to isolate ourselves. And I think COVID really didn't help with that. Yeah, you know, people are really suffering from anxiety these days. I have anxiety, and a lot of people don't realize that. I have high functioning anxiety.
What does that mean?
That means that I can function, I can sit and talk in front of a camera to you, I can be on stage, I can earn money and hold down a relationship, but behind the scenes internally, I'm dealing with a lot of things internally, anxiously wise, right? And and I've heard, at least when I went to go and get help for it, I heard that it's more common than ever.
Definitely.
In today's society, especially, and even in children, especially post-pandemic, where we spent a lot of time in our own worlds, isolated from people, and have a lot of fear around, you know, all sorts of things that are happening in the world right now. A lot of people are feeling anxious. So can you imagine if you're a young man trying to grow up and navigate, you know, being told you must be this way, but don't be too masculine, but you've got to show your emotions, you've got to do this, the message is so confusing.
Definitely.
And I'm not saying back in our day things were perfect. I mean, I don't agree that I got the metal spoon and certain things and were left alone for hours. I don't think that's best parenting, but we, even our age, right, are dealing with a lot of mental health issues from our past. Yeah. As we get older, we're realizing, and when you become parents, you're like, oh my God, it hits you.
You're actually transferring it onto your
kids.
Yeah,
it hits you. You don't want to repeat things, right? Yeah. So every generation has its issues and its mental health issues. And, you know, like I said, I'm not an expert, but I feel this generation, it's the feeling of isolation, it's loneliness, it's not quite knowing who you are, especially as men. Like, I'm not a man, but I'm raising one. And I worry for him, you know. It's like, I just feel like the messages that men get are so confusing these days.
I agree with you. I mean, I'm raising a daughter. She's 14. I feel a lot more comfortable about her in this world than maybe I would do with a boy, because a boy would have to find his space. For my daughter, she can find her own space quite easily and then decide whether she wants to upgrade it to allow somebody else into it or not. She's got a great relationship with her girlfriends. Yeah. She's got a really good idea about how the world works. Yeah. And she hasn't got this driving force that I must be better, I must be superhero level, but maybe the role models that boys have to raise themselves up to makes it really difficult to be able to deal with. Yeah. Do you think that because we're both with an entertainer's background, that our ability to have a really bad day, then grab a microphone and suddenly make it work for the audience's sake is partly the reason why you've managed to be able to cope with this, but behind the scenes, like a swan, elegant on top of the water, but its little legs are flopping underneath to keep it going? Do you think that's why I have a similar thing?
Can you relate 100%. To what I was saying?
100%.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation recently about the fact that I'm very good at brushing off those anxieties and challenges. And I detox myself when I'm not with anybody, but I do go deep. And it is very important to not keep it. Because if you keep it in for too long, like when you come off stage and people want to talk to you, I've got to get away from everybody because I need to find myself again. Yeah. That's a really important thing. But I suppose when we're talking about the next generation, if all you do is find yourself all the time, it's really hard to reconnect with real people and to make relationships. And
Yeah.
that is going to be a worry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I grew up with two parents that have quite severe mental health issues. So it made me a lot more aware of my own mental health and protecting it as I got older. So therefore I was like, these are things that I will accept and these are things I won't accept. And my friends laugh at me, like they're like, Rio, your boundaries are like strong. You say it how it is. Like if you don't want to do something, you will let someone know. No, I'm not off for that. Like I need my time. Like I'm very honest. And I think people respect that.
You're one of the strongest people I know in the industry. One of the strongest people, because nobody messes with you, and you'll happily walk away and say
They
no.
do. They
Well, we
try.
tried to, but you don't put up with it, which is amazing.
Yeah, and no, I think that is partly because of the way that I grew up, and it's like a protect myself before I get hurt defense mechanism sort of thing. And it's not great all the time, but I just think I learned to have boundaries, and I know what I can take and what I can't take, right? And I know when I'm at my best self and when I'm not at my best self. And I know that if I'm not at my best self, my family suffers. So it's important that I look after myself and my mental health, because it affects everyone. When mummy's not well, when wife is not well, like mentally, when, I'm not well as a business owner. So I think it's so important, like I said, boundaries, self-care, look after yourself,
Real time, just time that's yours and not anybody else's.
Look after your health, eat well, try and move your body, and things like that. And I try and teach my son to do the same, even though he's little. Like now we've decided we're going to work out together. And he's
How old
8.
is he?
He's 8.
Amazing.
So we've got we call it a training day that we do together. And obviously we limit gaming time and things like that, because I feel like, it's easy for us all, even adults, to get very addicted to our screens and always be like on our screens. And that takes away from, family time. Like sitting together and having a meal together and talking.
Which is magic time.
Like every Sunday, I will make sure we have like a proper family meal. We all sit together, we talk about the week and things like that. I wish it was every day, but, Adam's working hours are so different to mine. It doesn't always happen.
It's not always easy.
But it's a thing every Sunday, is our family time. Sit together, talk about the week. So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what about you for the future? What are your plans? The existing businesses, or have you got another business that's on the go? Are you going to spend time changing and evolving, or are you looking at it and going, you know what, this is okay, I'll settle for what I have right now?
I think, do you know what, like as a creative, and I did go and get tested for ADHD because a few people asked me if I had it. No, I don't. Apparently I don't have it. But he did tell me I have high functioning anxiety and a zest for life.
That's all right.
He was like, you've got a zest for life, Rio. Don't let anyone label you. You're an ideas person. I have so many ideas. This is my problem, right? And I want to do so much and start so many things. And over the past few years, I've done a lot of like soul searching, and I've really scaled back a little bit. And I'm now really focused, and I have a vision. And I can see a difference in myself over the past year in I'm actually executing, whereas before I would have all these ideas and I wouldn't necessarily execute, or I'd half start something and not continue on that trajectory. Whereas now I feel like I've got clarity and I'm focused and I have a game plan and I know how I want to evolve my business. And there's various verticals to what I'm doing. There's B2C, B2B.
You're not telling me anything, are you? You're just talking around the subject. Or is that one of those wait and see type conversations?
Yeah, because I've learned as well in the past is don't tell everybody your plans, because once you put it out there, like don't tell everybody your plans.
Okay.
So
it's the wrong question then.
Yeah, no, but I've basically so I've got Bride Club and Me, the platform.
Yeah.
The website, which is for the brides.
That's it.
So that's going through a rebrand, redevelopment. We're introducing AI into it because the old form does not work anymore. So I'm moving with the times. I'm building the Bride Club and Me business community, which is B2B for the wedding industry.
Community is really important
Yeah.
nowadays. It's even bigger than audience.
Yeah, we do workshops, we do networking events, there's opportunities, there's a lot of peer-to-peer support with one another. So that is really growing, and we've built the platform for that. And that's the best thing I've done so far. I'm really, really happy about that. And then we're launching Bride Club and Me Luxe.
Fantastic. Which of
is
these
for the
many
luxury wedding
websites,
industry.
where can people find you? How can they contact you and start working with you?
Yep, so they can find us at brideclubandme.com if they're getting married and they need support and help through the concierge. They can find me at rhiannondowniehurstconsulting.com if it's more B2B and they need support with their businesses. And we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're everywhere. Bride Club and Me. Yeah.
Fantastic. Rio, it's been a pleasure chatting with you, as always, because the times I see you, we're normally passing and going on to do something else, but to have a chance to sit and catch up and also put the world to rights, because we haven't really discussed the levels of what happened during the pandemic until now.
I know, and it's great to see what you're doing as well, Dave. Like, I love that I can see your, evolution in your business and what you're, from that time we worked together at Be Green and you were emceeing, and that was actually my first event that I put together by myself.
I did a great job.
I was so scared, but it went really well, and that gave me a taste for the event industry.
Of course.
As well. I was like, if I can do this, I can do anything.
The final thing I'm going to say is we've known each other, say, 15 years or so. There's not that many people from 15 years ago are still in the industry doing the stuff that they were doing. Most left the industry or left the country or went on to do something else. What would you say is a final part that we can say is how to survive in the UAE, or it could be anywhere really, but to stay in the industry? What would be the clues that you would give about sustaining your particular industry and being successful at what you do? And get a mentor.
There
you go. I know you're a mentor and I'm a mentor, and you guys need to have a mentor. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Rio. Fantastic. Thank you so much. So that's it. That's Gladiator TV today, and we're going to have some more great guests in the future, but just goes to show you that being a gladiator isn't just about going out there and knocking your way through things. It's also standing back, planning, working out where you are, and also taking advice from people who might have done it before. Sometimes you get some great ideas and insights that'll save you time, energy, and that smile. Look forward to catching up with you soon. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Share with us your thoughts in the comments section. We'll get Dariush back in this seat in a future episode. Meanwhile, look after yourself. Have an amazing day. And thank you for watching Gladiator TV.